and sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice, oh let us all, Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed, Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice, Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey, Jimmy Lakey.
All right, top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? Good to have you here. The Lakey Unleashed Daily Update, 8 o'clock in the Mountain Time Zone where I'm broadcasting from. And where time is it where you're at? It's 10 o'clock or so on the East Coast and 7 o'clock in the Pacific Time Zone. God bless you wherever you were listening to us. And we checked the numbers just recently, and we got people that tuning in, small amounts all around the globe. So hello, Germany. Hello, India. I think it's a big show in India. I think they really love us there. Anyway, good to have you here tuned in. It's a daily update. If you're not familiar, if you're new joining in, hopefully we have new people joining us every day. That is the objective. And it's just kind of a daily news update that we go on here, talk about the news of the day, and as part of the Lakey Unleashed podcast series. And what you do there is you can subscribe on Patreon and get other interviews, but this is a free daily update, and I'm glad to be here. Jimmy is my name. After years of corporate radio, I have been unleashed from the bonds of corporate radio, and we do this now together. So anyway, glad to have you here. If you're out there, like us, comment on all the platforms we're on. Hello, Facebook. Hello, Rumble. Hello, X. Good morning, YouTube as well. Everybody out there listening. And you can comment on most all of those platforms, and we see those right here in our studio. And producer Chad is monitoring them. And happy hump day, everybody. Happy hump day. Anyway, good. Lots of news to get to. Isn't there so much stuff we got to cover this morning? And I'm telling you, a lot of fun stuff happening in Washington, D.C. These confirmation hearings are exciting, aren't they? They're very exciting. We'll talk about the Pete Hegseth nomination hearing and have some video of that coming up here on the program. Pam Bondi, who's Trump's nominee for Attorney General, she's in the hot seat this morning. That is ongoing right now. It's happening, the confirmation hearing. And these things are kind of a lot of showboating, a lot of show ponies for the Democrats, knowing they're out of power. They tried to get Hegseth yesterday, and I thought Hegseth handled it very swimmingly. I did. Bondi is going to do fine as well. I look forward to watching some of that after the program, and it'll still be going on. Right now, it's the senators all making speeches and opening comments and things like that. They haven't begun to ask her questions yet. But Bondi used to be the Attorney General of the state of Florida. And she's been on Trump's legal team and one of his surrogates when he was speaking for him on the legal matters and the lawfare that was put against him. So Bondi, I think, will be well. She's well-versed. She's been through confirmation hearings as an attorney general for his state, and I think it's going to be okay for Pam Bondi. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. What else do we have? Joe Biden, a demented Joe that's going to stay up past his bedtime tonight. 8 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock Mountain time, Joe Biden is going to address America. He's going to give his farewell address to America. How many of you plan to watch that? How many of you just plan to watch that? Anybody planning to watch the old Joe Biden feed? I don't know how many would watch it. I'll watch it because it's kind of my job, but how many of you plan to watch this speech from Joe Biden? And if there's a drinking game involved, I figured producer Chad and I were talking, maybe we could do a drinking game in which every time Joe Biden kind of slurs his words and pushes them together to take a drink, and then by the end of the speech, we'll all be talking like Joe Biden. So that's a drinking game. If you have suggestions on the Joe Biden farewell speech drinking game, feel free to give it to us. He also with this has penned a farewell letter, which honestly is quite deceitful and demented and weird, very strange. But Joe Biden's living in a different world. Joe Biden's still out there with his threat to democracy language in his head. Joe Biden's out there also seeing himself as a savior and talking about what good he did. Here's some of the farewell letter that Joe Biden has written. He says, today, we have the strongest economy in the world and have created a record 16.6 million new jobs. Wages are up. Hold on. Unemployment's high right now, very high. Job force participation, very high right now. When he says he created 16.6 million new jobs, again, he's a deceitful, lying, demented man. because many of those jobs were just jobs that restarted after the shutdown of the economy by the COVID. And so those are not necessarily new jobs. You can see he calls them new jobs. Those are just people going back to work after filing unemployment, and they did that. So we have the strongest economy in the world. That may be true, but how many of you feel like we have the strongest economy that we need? A lot of layoffs going on out there. A lot of people getting kicked to the curb. But he says, when I inherited the office and I was elected, he says we were in the grip of the worst pandemic in a century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. By the way, that was all brought to you by the government and the government shutdown and the lies they told us in Dr. Fauci's lies. That's what that was about. And then here again, he's living in La La Land. He's living in a demented alternate universe. He says, and we were coming out of the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. He's talking about January the 6th, which we found out most of that with Liz Cheney. Most of that had been lies as well. It was no insurrection. The videotapes have been released. Most of his peaceful marching. The only person that got killed that day was actually an innocent protester, a veteran, Ashley Babbitt, that got shot outside the Capitol. So, but he's still spreading this rumor, this innuendo, this lie, this demented tale that was the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. I wonder if he thought about Pearl Harbor. Was that a bad attack on our democracy, you demented old jackass? What about September the 11th, when thousands of people were killed? Was that an attack on our democracy? Do you think the terrorists wanted our democracy to stand, you old demented fool? I mean, Joe Biden, the more he talks, the more stupid he becomes, and the more idiotic he is. And the more that Joe Biden talks, you have to start realizing, is there any president in modern history that's worse than Joe Biden? I mean, Jimmy Carter had some horrible policies, but Jimmy Carter didn't live in La La Land. Jimmy Carter didn't live in the world of the demented fools. I mean, Jimmy Carter actually was a decent human being with bad policy. Joe Biden's out there still spreading propaganda and rhetoric that was written for him by some radical person on the left, and maybe he believes it, maybe he doesn't, maybe he's just drooling out the side of his mouth and reading what they gave him. But this threat to democracy continues, and I'm guessing we're going to get some of that with Joe Biden tonight. All right, let me ask you, if anybody plan to read or listen to Joe Biden tonight? He has a speech tonight. If you want to comment on Joe Biden's farewell letter, and I'll come back and address it more in just a moment, you can do so, but it's the language of, again, here's what he did. He's lying. The jobs he created, which he didn't create them, the worst attack on democracy, January the 6th, and Joe Biden came in and saved the day. Here, let me read a little bit more of this. He says, we came together as Americans through this. We braved through it. We emerged stronger, more prosperous, and more secure. So Joe Biden says at the end of his presidency, we're stronger, we're more prosperous, and we're more secure. I want an honest answer from all of you out there. Does anybody out there believe that we're stronger, more prosperous, and more secure now than we were 4 years ago? I mean, we're not on lockdown. We're not under the threat of the booger cootie virus, but does anybody really believe, and can you really make an argument that we as a nation are a stronger nation? I mean, what we have, we ended up in a 4-year period when we put tampons in men's restrooms. Did that make us stronger? He says, we're rebuilding our entire nation, urban, suburban, rural, and tribal communities. Where's that happening? Can someone tell me where demented old Joel is referring to that we're rebuilding our entire nation? The urban areas, the suburban areas, rural areas, are they being rebuilt? He says manufacturing is coming back to America. Is it really? We're leading the world again in science and innovation. In the semiconductor industry, we finally beat Big Pharma to lower the cost of prescription drugs for seniors. You think Joe Biden really wants to beat Big Pharma? Big Pharma's in collusion with the federal government as it is. More people have health insurance today in America than ever before. He says, I ran for president because I believed that the soul of America was at stake. The very nature of who we are was at stake. It's just the same rhetoric and language. And Joe Biden is a fool. And I think the more he talks, the less likable he is. And he's never been likable to me, but the more he talks, you just have to read that he's out of step, he's out of touch, and time has moved on, and so has Joe Biden's mind. And tonight's farewell speech, if you have a drinking game to suggest, feel free to do so. All right, these confirmation hearings are underway as well. And the confirmation hearings I find to be quite comical and entertaining. And it also raised my blood pressure a little bit watching these Democrats showboat. And they're one-trick ponies. They just want to latch on to all sorts of crazy things. They wanted to try to latch on to potential infidelity. Did Pete Hegseth drink too much? And I'm going to play a couple of clips of, and it was the women senators. God bless the women out there. But these women senators, when Hillary Clinton, Rodham Kankles Clinton ran for president, I often said that one of the reasons she couldn't win is because when you listen to her talk and get into her, she's passionate. It was like every man's nagging ex-wife. Put the toilet seat down. What difference does it make? And God bless the women folk, but why is it that these Democrat radicalized women seem like angry little biddies that you want to divorce? I mean, that's how they come across. And again, I don't see that coming across in the screaming and the yelling from. I never saw that from Tulsi Gabbard. Never saw that from Pam Bondi. I've never saw that from I mean, they're just named, but some reason these radicalized Democrat women just come across as hateful words that you can't say and probably shouldn't say in pleasant company. Am I missing something? I just don't recall the Republican conservative women that have run for office or run for something. Heidi Ganahl, she ran for governor here in the state of Colorado, a very great conservative one. She never came across as a nagging, screaming, angry person, but these Democrat women are just angry. They are just angry, and I think that's why Hillary Rodham Kankles Clinton, one of the reasons she didn't win is you didn't want to have to put up with that screaming, lecturing voice every day. Even Kamala, between her cackles, she came across as an angry woman. She came across as unhappy. She came across not with a message of optimism, but a message of pessimism. She wanted to tell you why the toilet seat's up and why you're a bad person. The Democrats need to figure that out, that a little bit of optimism, especially among the women folk, would be very good. Let me play some. This is Elizabeth Warren, the senator from Massachusetts. Many of you may know her as Pocahontas. This is Pocahontas there, Pocahontas, and she's addressing Pete Hegseth. And Pete Hegseth gives a good answer to her. Again, she's just coming across as some nagging old biddy that you're like, why do we have to listen to you? And who put you in charge? And how do you keep getting elected in the great state of Massachusetts? You ready? Here we go. Play the audio. Here we go.
Now, Mr. Hegseth, you have written that after they retire, generals should be banned from working for the defense industry for.
Oh, listen to her. She just sounds like she's out of breath and in a frenzy. She's acts like she's in a frantic. Now, she has limited time, but she just acts like she's panicked. Mr. Hegseth, you have. Am I missing something? Am I being too critical on Pocahontas there? Listen to it. Here we go.
For 10 years. You and I agree on the corrosive effects of the revolving door between the Pentagon and defense contractors. It's something I would have liked to talk with you about if you'd come and been willing to visit with me. But the question I have for you on this is, will you put your money where your mouth is and agree that when you leave this job, you will not work for the defense industry for 10 years?
Oh, she thinks she's wise now. She's wise Pocahontas. Pocahontas come, and she have very good idea. Pocahontas come with peace offering and says, hey, we agree on this. Let's have a peace offering together, and this will be good. So Pocahontas here is really, she thinks she's got him, and she thinks she's the wisest woman in the tribe right now. She thinks she's pretty much, she's so wise that they should make her chief of the tribe. That's how wise Pocahontas is right here. So she thinks she got him. We got him. I'm so wise. Look at it. Would you agree with me, Pete Hegseth? And here's what he says.
Senator, it's not even a question I've thought about because it's not
about it right now.
It's not one. My motivation for this job.
I understand that. I just need a yes or no here.
Come next.
Time is short. I just need a yes or no.
I would consult with the president about what the policy should be at the Defense Department.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. You're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the
Pocahontas just got stumped. The room laughed. Pete Hegseth. If you look around her at a wider shot, even the other senators like trying not to laugh, like I got you there, woman. But Pocahontas, man, she thinks she's on it. She thinks she is an intellectual giant here in this video. She's not. She's not even Pocahontas. She's Pocahontas. But here we go. You ready? Here we go. I'm not a general, says Pete Hegseth.
one. Let us just be clear. In charge of the generals. So you're saying sauce for the goose, but certainly not sauce for the gander?
I would want to see what the policy of the president is.
I'll bet you would.
Oh, bet you would. See, that comes across as a nagging old biddy. I bet you would. I'm telling you, what is up with these angry women that seem to be Democrats? And there's angry Democrat men, but they don't come across that. It's the nagging voice. And again, you're saying you're a sexist. I'm just saying yesterday on display, the females of the Democrat Party did not come across very well at all. I'm just saying, throw that out there. That's my observation. That's my constitutionally protected opinion, that for some reason these ladies just seem angry. There's something about when they get their Democrat voting card, they have to say, I'm really an angry woman. They have to say I'm a nagging. They have to say something. They have to come across as angry. And Elizabeth Warren thought she had him, and he did what you do in a situation like that, and his communication skills came in very handy, and he was able to deflect her nagging. And is there any other way to call that except nagging? She thought she had a gotcha question, and he deferred humor and said, I'm not a general. That's a rule for generals. I'm a civilian. And this does come up later in the hearing. Let me play another one of just these crazed senators. This is Senator Duckworth from Illinois, and she was perhaps the most angry of all of them. And she's going to get into some diatribe here about whether or not you've ever led an audit, Senator. Have you ever led an audit? Have you ever been audited? I don't know what leading an audit has to do with being the Secretary of Defense. Is he going to go in and audit the Pentagon budget? No, he's not. There's people that do that. But she wants to know if he has ever led an audit. And again, she thinks she has him in a she's just angry. She thinks she has him because he's never led an audit, because they were trying to get after him that how many people have you led in your organizations? You haven't been, all sorts of things. And it gets pointed out later, the only constitutional qualification of being a defense secretary is that you're a citizen. Matter of fact, if you're going to be a person that's former military, there has to be a waiver. And so Pete Hegseth, who's not active now, he's just a citizen. But if you're active military, Lloyd Austin was active. Mad Dog Mattis, he was active. They had to get a waiver because the Constitution says, hey, if you're supposed to just be an average citizen, just a citizen out there, and you're supposed to help oversee our military through the Department of Defense, through the cabinet. Well, this is Duckworth. She thinks she's another just angry old battle axe, that she really thinks she has Pete Hegseth. It's about the audit. And again, I don't know what the audit has to do with qualifying for the defense secretary. I'm not sure that Lloyd Austin ever led an audit. I'm not sure. But listen, this is, again, Duckworth from Illinois. And again, you now know why they have stupid policies in Illinois. And Chicago, you get what you vote for. That's all I can tell you. Here we go.
To answer my colleague's question is to actually win the votes of every member of this committee and to be confirmed by the United States Senate. And you need to convince us that you're worthy of that vote, because the people of the state of Illinois voted for me to be their senator. All
right, so all of a sudden she takes a stand and she's going to make it all about herself. You need to do this, and I need to do this, and I'm so-and-so. Again, are you going to get anywhere with that tone? What is it? It's better to attract with honey than vinegar. And she's just this nagging old woman grandstanding. Hopefully she can raise some campaign coffers because, what's the point here? She just, you need to convince us, sir. And the real answer is, hey, you stupid woman, guess what? And you stupid lady, you stupid senator, whatever you are. I'm just answering questions. I'm not here to convince. I'm just here to answer questions. I will convince you only based on the questions you ask me. And by the way, she already said, and you have not convinced me, and I'm not going to vote for you. So why do we have to listen to you? Why does your pie hole even have to open, Tammy Duckworth? But it does, and she continues, and she's going to get really stuck up in the world of audits. Here we go.
So that I could cast that vote when it comes to picking who is going to be the next Secretary of Defense. This hearing now seems to be a hearing about whether or not women are qualified to serve in combat, and not about whether or not you are qualified to be Secretary.
All right, so let's pause there, Tammy Duckworth. Why does this hearing seem to be about women serving in combat and not whether you're qualified? Hey, Tammy, it's because you jackwagon Democrats keep asking him questions about women in combat. If the hearing has digressed into something about women in combat rather than talking about Pete Hegseth, Tammy, there's no one to blame except yourself for that. There's no one to blame except your fellow colleagues in the Democrat Party for that. Stop lecturing Pete Hegseth about what the hearing has digressed into, except look at your own big butt in the mirror and realize you're part of the problem here, Tammy, if I may call you Tammy. All right, continue the audio.
Defense. And let me just say that the American people need a SecDef who's ready to lead on day one. You are not that person. Our adversaries watch.
Oh, he's supposed to convince, but she's already declared he's not that person, not ready to lead on day one. Well, you're supposed to convince us you're here. Well, ask me a question. Well, you're not that person. So again, Tammy Duckworth is I don't know her background. I don't know much about her, but Illinois. We make fun of California for electing people like Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom. You guys got what JD, those big, what's his name? The governor, big fat governor there. And you also got Tammy Duckworth. Illinois, another place, maybe not a good place to live. I'm guessing. Here we go.
Closely during times of transition. And any sense that the Department of Defense that keeps us safe is being steered by someone who's wholly unprepared for the job puts America at risk. And I am not willing to do that.
She just complained that he has not, they've been talking about other things and not talking about why he's qualified. And yet she's admitting now she's already drawn a conclusion that he's not qualified on day one. But she just complained that no one is talking about how it is he could be qualified on day one. Interesting, Tammy.
With that in mind, Mr. Hegseth, I want you to try to explain to the American people, this committee, who have to vote for you, and to our troops who are deployed around the world, why you are qualified to lead the Department of Defense. We already know that you've only led the largest, a 200-person organization. We already know that you so badly mangled a budget that after you left, they had to bring in a forensic accountant to figure out what went wrong. And that the largest budget you ever managed was about $18 billion. You know, that is about 51,560 times lower than the Department of Defense budget.
Do you think Tammy Duckworth came up with that percentage number on her own? I don't think so. She had a staffer. She had to read it. I don't think Tammy Duckworth would know how to work a calculator like that. And by the way, the qualification for being a Secretary of Defense is that you are a citizen. And how many members of the Senate? I wonder how many. Tammy Duckworth, I got to look up her history. Has Tammy Duckworth ever led an organization that's over 200 people? Has Joe Biden ever led an organization that's over 200 people? The answer is most people in Washington, D.C. have not led an organization of over 200 people. And yet Tammy Duckworth sits there on her fat, self-righteous ass, and she wants to lecture Pete Hegseth that he hasn't led a big enough organization. I'll look up her background, but I guarantee if not her colleagues have also. I mean, has Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, ever led an organization of over 200 people? No, she lied so she could get a teaching job at Harvard. She didn't lead an organization. She might have taught 200 students, but she didn't lead an organization. All right, a little bit more of Tammy Duckworth before she starts becoming like a woman on The View and grading fingernails on a chalkboard.
Of $825 billion. $16 million is 51,568 times smaller than the defense budget. Please describe to me, Mr. Hegseth, you talk about DOD passing an audit. Please describe to me a time or an organization when that you led underwent an audit, because you say you're going to hire smarter people than you to run this audit. I'm not asking you to be an accountant. I want you to be able to tell me what kind of guidance will be given to those employees, what will happen whether or not you pass that audit. Have you led an audit of any organization, yes or no?
All right, hang on. If you're the chairman or CEO of any company and you say, and the board of directors say you need to have an audit, does everybody on the board say, well, I've led an audit? No, you hire accountants to lead an audit. So Tammy Duckworth thinks she's outsmarting herself. She thinks she's really brilliant here by saying, hey, you were in the Army and you're going to call for an audit. How can you call for an audit if you've never led an audit? Well, somebody help me with this convoluted Democrat angry woman logic here that you're going to call for an audit, but if you've never led an audit, how would you even know what to do with an audit? Well, you hire people that know how to do an audit. Tammy Duckworth thinks she's going to outsmart Pete Hegseth, and I'll play a little bit more of her, but think of the logic here. You're going to call for an audit. You're going to hire smart people, but how can you do that because you've never led an audit? Have you ever led an audit, sir? Yes or no?
I don't want a long answer. Yes or no. Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes or no, did you lead an audit?
Stated,
yes or no? What are you afraid of? You can't answer this question. Yes or no, did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every part of my leadership of these organizations has been misrepresented.
I will take that as a no. What were the findings? So there were no findings because you've never led an audit. What guidance did you give the auditors? None, because you've never led an audit. No.
Could you imagine being married to that old battle axe? I mean, could you imagine getting in a little tussle argument over something with her? I'm telling you, not a pleasant woman, not a pleasant look for Miss Duckworth, or should we call her Tammy? Not a good look for her. All right, there was hope there. I want to play a fun one for you. This was Senator Jordan Conrad's, and Conradson, that's his name. And he's kind of getting tired of it. He's getting tired. They have Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia trying to talk about, you were reported that you took drinks on the job. And they tried to bring up some marital issues and indiscretions that might have happened. This is Jordan Conradson. He's a Republican. And I wonder if Pocahontas or Miss Duckworth were sitting there and listening, and if they had the intellectual capacity to digest what Mr. Conradson is about to tell them. Old Timmy Kane's. And by the way, these women run for office, and why do they choose vice presidents like Kankles, Hillary Rodham Kankles Clinton, took a guy like Tim Kaine from Virginia, who's squirrely and weird, and then you had Kamala took a squirrely old guy in Tim Walz. You think of both of those women running for president, and one day we will have our first woman president. I pray to God it's a conservative, because we see what these liberal women are like. We'll have our first one, and I guarantee you their first choice is going to be a better vice president than the squirrely and very weird senator from Virginia named Tim Kaine, and the even weirder and stranger Tim Walz from Missouri. Anyway, this is Jordan Conradson, and he's going to refer to a lot of this stuff that they were talking about, and he puts them all in their place, and he calls out and says, hey, let's just be honest about what really happens here in the U.S. Senate. Ready? Senator Conradson, please.
Start talking about qualifications for if you're qualified for it. Could the chairman tell me what the qualifications are for the Secretary of Defense? Mr. Chairman, could you tell me what the qualifications are for the Secretary of Defense?
I'd be happy
I'll read it.
For you to do that. Yeah.
Let me read it for you, because I Googled
I was getting some advice from my second in command.
Yeah, but I'm just making a point, because there's a lot about qualifications, and I think it's so hypocritical of senators, especially on the other side of the aisle, be talking about his qualifications, not being able to lead the secretary or be the Secretary of Defense, and yet your qualifications aren't any better.
Let me pause. This is exactly what I was saying. You're saying he's not qualified because he hasn't led a group of more than 200 people. What are your qualifications? His only qualification required of him is he be a citizen, and your qualifications aren't any better. You just happen to get elected to a Senate seat that who knows what you're qualified to even study. Why was Hillary Rodham Kankles Clinton put in charge of Hillary Care back in the days of Bill Clinton, other than he didn't want to be nagged by his wife in the residential part of the White House? She had no qualifications to talk about health care. She had no qualifications. She was a failed attorney that probably could have had been on the wrong side of very many legal battles, and yet all of a sudden she was going to lecture all of us on health care. Continue Senator Conradson, pointing out some of the hypocrisy of his colleagues across the aisle.
You guys aren't any more qualified to be the senator than I'm qualified to be the senator, except we're lucky enough to be here. But let me read you what the qualifications of the Secretary of Defense is, because I Googled it and went through a lot of different sites, and really it's hard to see. But in general, the U.S. Secretary of Defense position is filled by a civilian. That's it. If you have served in the U.S. Army forces and have been in the service for, you have to be retired for at least 7 years, and Congress can weigh that. And then there's.
Let me pause here. I was off the screen. You notice what's happening here. You got these nagging people screaming, these liberals screaming at Pete, and everybody's angry and tense, and you're like, good Lord, what in the world? Who peed in your Cheerios this morning? You have earlier Pete Hegseth going, ma'am, I'm not a general, and the place erupts in laughter, and then all of a sudden you have the Senator Conradson. He makes people laugh, and I'm telling you, it's just fascinating to watch the ability to use humor sometimes on a conservative side as opposed to not. And, we conservatives can get preachy as well, but the use of humor is a very powerful tool in communication. And a lot of folks don't understand that. They get way too serious, take themselves so seriously that they don't know how to have a little ha-ha, giggle. And Hegseth, Conradson, both in that hearing yesterday, they both were able to, and I think it comes across well on camera. Listen to Conradson. He also going to talk about alcohol use in the U.S. Senate. Play that. Go.
Questions that the senator from Massachusetts brought up about serving on a board inside the military industry, and yet your own secretary that you all voted for, Secretary of Austin, we had to vote on a waiver because he stepped off the board of Raytheon. But I guess that's okay because that's a Democrat Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
But you so quickly forget about that. And then Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake.
Camera goes to Tim Kaine. He's been called out and exposed for being a buffoon and an idiot. You got to be dumb if Hillary Clinton's going to choose as your VP, and he's not a good guy. The only guy goofier as a VP nominee was Tim Walz. But there's Tim Kaine, a camera shot of him shaking his head, trying not to laugh, probably wishing he had stepped out to go to the bathroom for this tongue lashing that he's getting by Senator Conradson because he's a hypocritical idiot.
And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye. We've all made...
That may be lost on the Democrats. That's actually a biblical reference. I know that's shocking, but the Democrats probably didn't realize that. That's a reference from the Bible, the Bible. Okay, Democrats, I just wanted to help you know that's a reference there. He didn't just talk about planks like walk a plank in a pirate. No, it's a Bible reference, and I know that's sometimes lost on the Dems.
Mistakes. I've made mistakes, and Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too. I have changed, but I'm not perfect. But I found somebody that thought I was perfect. And for whatever reason, you love Pete, and I don't know why. But just like our Lord and Savior forgave me, my wife's had to forgive me more than once too, and I'm sure you've had to forgive him too. And so thank you. So before I...
So there you have it. There's the two different tones and tenors that were in that hearing yesterday. And it's just amazing, the buttressing that they were trying to do against Pete Hegseth. I thought he handled it splendid. I really thought he did a great job of it, and congratulations to him for handling that, because I'm not sure I'd keep my cool there. Anybody remember when Joe Biden took office, or when Barack Obama? I mean, yes, Republicans oppose you, but I don't remember. I was doing radio and all those, and I don't recall the sound bites of just this angry nagging. As a matter of fact, there's many times that I was yelling at the Republicans in those confirmation hearings. Why are you voting yes? You should vote no. But the advise and consent. The Democrats every time have a different view on what these confirmation hearings should be, and that was on display yesterday. Pam Bondi is up now. She's a former attorney general from Florida. She's up now in our confirmation hearing in the Judiciary Committee, I guess, and Senator Lindsey Graham is now questioning Pam Bondi, and we'll have excerpts from that, I'm sure, by tomorrow. All right, ladies and gentlemen, real quick before I go to our guest today, it's a lot of time for Steve Laffey. Want to remind you that a couple of things. This is a free daily Unleashed update. We do this free. It's a labor of love indeed, but we don't intend for it always to be there. We're about to start unveiling some of our advertisers, and there's still time for you to get in here as an advertiser. There's a studio sponsor that will have their banner up behind us and replacing what they said the Rivers Promise. We put that up in a temporary thing. That's my charity work, but your logo could be seen by thousands of people every day. And not only that, we'll talk about you. We're going to have an opportunity for video commercials up, but there's also a sponsorship. If you're a small business, maybe you don't have a large budget, or maybe you have a large budget, but you just want to kind of help out a little bit. We have advertising, a small package for as little as $25 a show. 25 to 50 bucks. It's 25, 50 bucks. I think it's 25 bucks a show. I'll do the math again. It's not a lot. There's an easy way to get entered here. And some of the bigger categories, though, are category exclusive. So if you want to be the, let's say you want to be the tree trimmer of the Daily Unleashed broadcast, if you become one of the top tiers, you'll be the only tree trimmer we allow on the program, or at least in that category, or at least that we talk about. You get the idea. So anyway, but email us, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. We'd love to have you join us. And again, there's packages, great and small, entry for all businesses out there. Info@jimmylakey.com. Also, for the rest of you that aren't going to do that, please go to the Patreon page, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, and be a subscriber there. There's a free subscription there, but if you want to get the good stuff that's behind a paywall, it's $9.95 a month, 7-day free trial, but everything goes to Patreon. You can be a free member of Patreon on my page, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. There's also a way to become a member if you want some exclusive behind-the-scenes content, interviews. I did the Leighton Gray interview yesterday, and if we have time, maybe we'll play some of that. Producer Chad, we didn't talk about it. Maybe we can pull some of that up. The Leighton Gray interview yesterday about Canada was very fascinating. And that dropped on Monday, I should say. A lot of folks have been commenting to me on that, say what a great interview it was. We went at 45 minutes, and he's a Canadian attorney, but he's a Canadian thought leader as well. And he really talked about the damage that Justin Trudeau has done to his country. So that's behind the paywall. You can only see about 2 minutes of it without the paywall. It's at patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. All right, one more quick announcement. This coming Monday's Inauguration Day. As you know, Inauguration Day, swearing in the 47th President of the United States. We're going to do the show live in public. If you're out of state, it's in Lafayette, Colorado. If you're in state, it's in Lafayette, Colorado as well. An enclave somewhere right around Boulder and Denver, not too far from either one of them. And about 30 minutes south of the Fort Collins area, 35, 40 minutes. It depends on how fast you drive and what the traffic's like. We're going to do a party there. Yeah, there will be cigars. It's going to be a great time. I'm going to do this very show live from there. 8 o'clock we'll start and probably go a little bit longer, but come join us. It's free to the public, and yeah, make sure you join us. Inauguration Day and Casbar Cigar Lounge is what it's called, Casbar Cigar. And we'll do the show live from there. Hope to meet a lot of you. Thank you for coming out in advance. All right, here we go. He's waiting patiently in the green room. It's Mr. Steve Laffey. He's with us every week at this time. Steve Laffey, longtime friend of the radio show, and now he's here with us on the, what do we call the streamcast? I've dubbed the word as a streamcast, not a podcast. Steve Laffey, good morning to you, sir.
Jimmy, great show. I did watch a little Mr. Mullen yesterday, give him hell, so good for him. But yeah, anything where you want to go, it is amazing how we've elected total clowns from Keynes to Wall. I mean, state by state, and in California, it may be especially where hopefully those things change now.
It really is bizarre, and you know, they sit there, they lecture Hegseth, who's actually been willing to lay his life down for his country. You may think they're a more qualified defense secretary, that's fine, but to go after him personally as if they're self-righteous on the throne of God doing that, just some of these attacks get so nasty and personal. I know politics is nasty, but you realize we didn't elect statesmen or stateswomen. We've elected some clowns in some of these states because that was not statesman-like intellectual argument. That was just nagging, screaming, and it was no good.
Yeah, how about Mr. Hegseth? How many submarines should we build a year in the Trident class? Mr. Hegseth, how many people do we actually need in the military, in each division, and how many tanks do we need? And I don't know. Just ask some questions that make some sense. But the thing is, among especially the Democratic members of the United States Senate, they don't care or know the answers. They wouldn't say, no, I disagree. We need 3, and I think we need 3, not 2 new nuclear, myself, right? So they don't know the answer, nor they care about the answer. And that's really the problem in America today. It's really the problem. It's a giant problem.
And you kind of get what you vote for. Old Barack Obama was famous for saying elections have consequences. And, it's kind of soon, but you look at the disaster that's happening in California with the fires, and people call a fire an act of God. But a lot of this and the damage that's done was an act of human stupidity by Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, and you criticize them, but the people of California elected them.
Yeah, and I really pray, and I think this may be like a defining moment for California, because they elected the fire chief or appointed the fire chief of the county or whatever, who is way overweight, has no idea what's going on, and doesn't have any pumps ready. 2, they've reelected a governor who refuses, along with the state legislature, to take all the extra water when it rains and put it into giant reservoirs everywhere around the state. They could have done that. They could do that. They won't do that. And so people not even growing trees anymore, right? So because they got to protect one fish somewhere. Who knows what their rationale really is, right? And then you take right now in Los Angeles, there are men who have stayed behind to protect condos and defend, sending their wives off. And you got people now carrying guns in neighborhoods, protecting the homes that haven't burned or have burned from looters. If this was Mississippi, if you remember the flood in Mississippi, where the governor this is 10, 20 years ago, said, just remember, we shoot looters. In Mississippi, they didn't have any looters.
Yeah.
The governor said, we shoot looters. Just remember, as the whole thing was breaking down in Mississippi with a flood in a conservative state, that was the message. So when you hear that message, do you show up to get shot? No. And so hopefully this is the defining moment for California where they say we elected a bunch of losers, and that even people who are the massive media left-wing people whose houses have burned down unnecessarily say, you know, we've got to change. We finally have to change. And at least California could be a purple state. The guy who lost the mayor of Los Angeles was like out of town, didn't come back, doesn't have anything to say. Whereas the person who actually knows what he's doing is out there actually trying to help fight fires, who lost the race. A real estate guy whose real estate buildings don't burn down because he puts in private fire. So now maybe people are seeing this saying, listen, that guy's prepared. Let's get him.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The government's we have this mentality that the government's going to save us, the government's going to bail us out, and we see how that works here in this time, and it's not necessarily the truth. And it's just amazing to me. And I want to talk about some other topics that you've sent over, but it's amazing to me that we have this. And I know it's a massive fire and massive damage in California. But only last week that I realized people in North Carolina are still living in tents because they have not had help from the government and FEMA hasn't come through. They're still living in tents in North Carolina after Hurricane Helene.
Yeah. And for example, you and I talked about this like 10 years ago and maybe 5 years ago twice. Let me just bring it up again. If I were president, we would have Walmart and other large companies like Home Depot put bottles of giant amount of water, all these things in 7, 8 different locations in America. And as these expiration dates came, even on water or tools, they'd be going out to the public and would replace them. So when a disaster happened, immediately trucks, whatever's needed is there in 7 locations and goes to these places, temporary homes, single wide. We'd have Clayton Homes build us some more single wide and have them sitting there so they could go to places that's needed for people who are serving, people who need them. None of that has ever happened. Not under Donald Trump, not under Obama, not under Bush. We are ill prepared for any disaster, and we have never hardened, our systems for electricity and so forth in this country. And we are ill prepared for anything that's happening. And when it happens, it just happens, and people don't have a place to live, and FEMA doesn't have a place to put people to go fight fires. We are just the most ill-prepared country of the richest country by far.
Yeah. If you're just listening to the audio of this show, I know some of you put the headphones on and just kind of listen to it while you're at work, and that's good. That's the voice of Steve Laffey. His website, stevelaffey.com. Steve, let's switch over a little bit. Obviously, Monday's the inauguration day, and one of the top stories that has been, I guess, kind of an albatross around America for the last couple of years in the national scene is what's going to happen between Ukraine and Russia. But Donald Trump said he thinks he's going to be able to get some kind of a settlement here with Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky. Talk about this. Putin says he's going to have some demands if he's going to talk to Donald Trump. Give me your thoughts here.
Well, Putin put out his demands that he keeps 20% of the land, and they never join NATO, and they have limited military and all this kind of stuff. It's like a non-starter for Trump, I think. So Trump, as he says in the campaign, I'm going to settle it in 24 hours. It won't be settled in a long time because Putin, just so you know how Russians act. When Trump said he could do these kind of things and he had a conversation with Putin from Mar-a-Lago, the next day, the national news, one channel, I guess, in Russia, put up naked pictures on the news of his wife, nude photos of Melania on TV, and everybody laughed. So Putin is basically telling Trump to stick it. And Trump won't react that well because Zelensky's actually saying, hey, whatever you need to do, we're ready to talk and negotiate and so forth, which is smart by him, right? And he met up with by the way, during the inauguration, I'll be at Notre Dame in France. I'll be in France. And so I'll go where Trump and Zelensky met a couple of weeks ago. But it's just silly stuff. And it brings you back to the point of whether it's the DOGE people who were going to cut $2 trillion out of the budget when we only collect $4.4 trillion, and they weren't including Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and so forth. So now they're down to like a couple $100 billion, I think. And so the question for everybody is, do you pay attention? Are you listening at all? Do you hear these things and say, well, people just say that I'm still voting for so-and-so? I guess the answer is yes. Like, I guess the answer is yes. Like, no one seems to know what I'm talking about. People listen to the show do, but the average person has no idea what we're talking about, as the deficit overwhelms the United States of America slowly but surely, even today. They're just not paying attention.
It's very similar to what we're just talking about in the leadoff here. You watch these senators, and you can't be from the state of Illinois or the state of Massachusetts and going, wow, we have the most intellectually astute person ever. People just don't pay attention. I think a lot of people in Illinois, even people that may be Democrats, would be horrified that that's how Duckworth represents them. And they just come, it's buffoonery, and we don't seem to mind the buffoonery.
And we don't seem to mind the fact that our taxes are really high for many people, right? That you're right now paying into Social Security, that you're 40 years old and you're never going to get it. It's about to go bankrupt. And you're just like, well, just keep paying into it. I won't say anything to my parents. I won't say anything. I won't vote that way. I won't vote to fix it. And the roads are terrible. Even think about it. You're in Colorado. I'm in Colorado. People listening all over the world. Colorado is a rich state. It's one of the richest states. In fact, its budget revenue goes up so much that there's an argument about, the constitutionally, they send money back to us, right? But they argue about it because the Democrats don't want to send the money back. It's so rich in oil, and yet the highway of Route 25, the main highway, is one of the worst things you could ever drive on. Still. And it must be that someone's getting paid off and nobody cares. And even in a wealthy city that I live in Fort Collins, when it snows, they refuse to plow the roads. They don't do it. They won't put down. They put down like Beetlejuice and hope it works on the main roads, and everything. They just wait for the sun to come back. But if it doesn't come back in the wealthiest part of the state, Fort Collins, it might be Boulder, right? They refuse to plow the roads.
And
everybody's okay with it.
Right.
At the city council level, they just elect the same people. Yeah, but yet they're sliding all over the place and whack. I watch it out here. They whack their cars. Yeah, they're fine.
It really is bizarre. And I always try, now that we've kind of have this new platform and we're being national, I always like to tell the Colorado stories, and you're vouching everything I say, because in 2 years, Jared Polis is going to attempt to run for governor. Our Senator Michael Bennett ran, John Hickenlooper ran. Now Jared Polis, who's a rich cat, he's going to try to run. And he's going to try to portray himself as some moderate. And my friends, you have to listen to Steve Laffey and I. He's been a horrible governor. Our roads are worse. I mean, he's been an awful, awful governor, and there's nothing libertarian or moderate about him. He's an awful, awful guy. It really, really is.
Within like a stone's throw of the Capitol, so people outside know, of Denver, like 4 people were stabbed on the 16th Street Mall last week, and 1 died.
Yeah.
You're walking down, there's a walking mall, just so people know they've never been there. I never go there. I won't go there. I don't go to Denver. I won't go. I don't step over homeless people. I just don't give them money. But people go and they get stabbed at 5 p.m. walking down a walking mall, which everybody should be having fun, holding their kids' hands, gapping on the trolley. Instead, they're getting stabbed because they won't do anything about the people who are stabbing people.
Yeah, the guy that did the stabbing had a rap sheet. He had been released because we can't be mean to violent criminals. We had to let him back out on the streets. This is the justice system of Colorado, and Jared Polis. He's an absolute positively disaster. Steve, I just got this note yesterday from a friend, and this is a kind of a diversion, talking about the sickness of our state. And this is the craziness of him. There's my friend who's a former professor at local university said that it's a law in 2023, there was a law that where we wanted to become like the abortion Disneyland. We wanted to become like an abortion tourist state. We have some of those liberal open laws for abortion at all. And the law that was signed by Governor Jared Polis, I didn't realize this. If you're going to do a chemical abortion, they inject a drug. And within a certain time, if you don't reverse it, it will take effect and kill the baby. But it is illegal. If a lady is in that process, it's illegal. It's in the law. And I've got the magazine article here. That's how radical our laws are. If a lady is in the process with an abortion and she says, I changed my mind, can we stop now? It is illegal for the doctor to give her the reversal dose of progesterone. It is illegal for him to stop it, even if she wants to.
Yeah.
No joke.
You know, it is so sick and so sad that the culture of death, whether it's California or Colorado, is now running so rampant. these people don't even realize, the liberal people who do this, that even on a secular basis, you would not be for abortion because you don't want them to come after you. If we protect every life very young and very old and people with Down syndrome and mentally ill from being exterminated, then it's just listen to me, folks, on this. It's less likely that they come for you, right? But they don't think that way. They think about dehumanizing all humans. And then they think that this is the whole argument of these crazy women people. It's my body. Well, it's your body, but there's someone renting a space inside there. It's alive. It's breathing. What are you talking about? At least say it like Clinton used to say. It should be rare, right?
Yeah.
These people don't say that. They say do it every day. They want that. That's their version of of women's rights. Except there's a person inside.
Yeah.
Dr. Zeus. How many Dr. Zeus stories do you have to read? A person's a person, no matter how small. I mean, you learn this as a kid, and I didn't even get into to religion, which I'm very religious, right? So, but just to protect yourself, folks, be anti-abortion.
Let me ask you real quick as we head towards our end of our time. Tonight, Joe Biden is going to give a speech, his farewell address. He's released a farewell letter. And again, he's living in a delusional world that he's created 16.6 million jobs. Most of those were just reestablishing the economy after COVID. He also says he took over right after the greatest attack on our democracy since the Civil War, talking about January the 6th. I guess he forgot about Pearl Harbor, 9/11. It's a delusional letter. Give me your review of Joe Biden, thoughts on his speech tonight. I think he will be judged, if not already, if history will judge him as one of the most feckless and inefficient governors in modern history. Your thoughts on the farewell address in the final days of Joe Biden?
Yeah, good riddance. Don't slap your door on the head on the way out, you idiot. You're the worst president ever. You topped Obama. You got people out of Afghanistan. A 12-year-old would have done a better job. First, should have left, but even leaving, literally a 12-year-old. Now, the invasion of Ukraine, you did nothing about. You could have stopped it the way Trump it would not have happened under Trump. Putin would have waited. So go on, just the whole thing, and then the ultimate thing of first of all, you're the person, Mr. Biden, who disregarded every Supreme Court ruling against you about student debt. It didn't matter. You just kept doing it and then getting it thrown out because you were placating this many people instead of protecting the general interest of America. Your woke policies on the military have destroyed the ability of young people to say, I'm going in, especially in the South. Parents who had generations in the South, where most of our military fighting forces come from, is from Alabama, right? And I'm being hyperbolic, but they come from Alabama. And the fathers are now like, no, we're not doing that. You did that, Mr. Biden. You did it in spades. And then the last part, where you decided to pardon your son, who's guilty as hell, to throw a middle after all you said about Trump's pardons, which were terrible. You threw a middle finger up to the executive privilege that you have and pardoned your son, who is the most guilty person who should be in jail for years. You did it so that people now disrespect the presidency of the United States in the most important way. They don't trust it. You've taken down democracy, Mr. Biden. Leave now. And forever, and we hope we never see you again. And here's the other part about Biden and his wife and his family. They are so selfish that after he was elected as a place card holder, he should have announced that day, as I said on your show, that he wasn't running again. I said he was 100% chance that he would never be reelected, never run. I was right. It took an extra 2 months talking to you.
Yeah.
Right? I said by March. I might be wrong, but I'm 100% correct on this. And I was, because you were too darn old and you put all of us at risk because you couldn't handle it. You're mentally incompetent, and your wife is the most selfish lady who ever stepped into the first lady job in the history of America. Goodbye.
Yeah. I think when you look at the Biden family, when the history book is told, you will find that selfishness there that, they didn't pull the old guy aside and say, hey, Pops, it's kind of time to hang it up. You're slipping there a little bit. I've got a story that even some staffers said it just got worse and worse from the day one. It was obvious to all of us. And this is, I don't know if the media learns anything, but the media got exposed for their covering up of the whole thing. They said he was fine. So the lessons learned of the Biden presidency will be interesting to see if there are any learned. But
I mean, picking only a black woman to be the vice president left him with a complete incompetent for 4 years, right? Who wouldn't go to the border, put her in charge of the border, and she couldn't win, right? Because a lot of people could have beat Donald Trump. So in history, he destroyed himself. He'll go down in the very below Franklin Pierce, below Van Buren, like people you don't even remember. He'll be the worst, and they will throw him under the bus in the history books. And all he had to do was serve a couple of years and appoint someone normal. Like, as I said, the astronaut, right? Like an astronaut, or the governor of Pennsylvania, somebody who was normal, the governor of Kentucky. Somebody normal could have been vice president, and then someone normal could have replaced him, and they would have got rid of Kamala Harris if they had a chance. They didn't have a tough time, and they would have won.
Yeah. I think that's the key question. We'll wrap it up here, but the key question is, will the Democrats return to normal? Because I started the show showing these senators, these lady senators, they're not normal women. Those are not normal ladies. No. They're crazed. Gavin Newsom is slick and smarmy as he seems to be. They're not normal people. And as much as you like Trump or don't like Trump, he at least comes across kind of normal. I mean, he works at the McDonald's when he needs to, drives a garbage truck, has a sense of humor. Will the Democrats learn anything and become normal again? Because Democrats, the leadership is not normal. I mean, Chuck Schumer's not a normal guy. Nancy Pelosi's not a normal woman.
No, Chuck Schumer. I've met Chuck Schumer, and you walk away from a meeting with him like going to find a shower, because he is really a bad guy, and he's the guy in charge for them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they can or not, but Gavin Newsom's done forever. The fires did him in, and they did in the mayor of Los Angeles, and that will happen, continue to happen if they keep doing this.
One more thing, you talk about the fires and tying all this together. Joe Biden said he would have appointed the first African-American black woman in the Supreme Court, which he did, which is an insult to the lady. Hey, we're only appointing you because you're black and you're the smartest black woman we could find. Might have been smarter men. Ketanji Brown Jackson. He said he'd appoint a woman, but he couldn't put Amy Klobuchar in because she had some pro-police laws that she had supported. So then he goes to, well, I'll get a woman of color. And no joke, as Joe Biden would say, his two choices on the short list were Kamala Harris, who we know who she is, and Karen Bass, who's now the mayor of Los Angeles. Those were the two ladies he actually considered to be his VP. I mean, you think Kamala Harris was a bad VP. Imagine if we would have gotten stuck with Mayor Karen Bass as a VP.
Yeah. Makes Lyndon Johnson look like a giant in history.
It does. Steve Laffey, safe travels. Are you going to check in with us while you're traveling?
I'm checking from Paris and then from Athens. It'll work on the phone, and so let's try it. I'll be the roving reporter, see how they react.
I did this whole show from Rwanda a couple of weeks ago, so the technology you have is great. So I think it'll work out great. There's a little app and all that stuff. There's a little link is always the same. I'll make sure you're hooked up on it. Steve,
I got it hooked up on my phone. We'll do it. I love you.
Yeah. God bless you. Love you, my friend, and happy travels and safe travels to you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good to have you here on the show. A lot of good conversation with Steve Laffey. He's right. Donald Trump, and I'm right. Donald Trump comes across as a normal guy. You don't have to like him, but he comes across normal. There's nothing normal. We watched all those video clips. If you missed them, go back and watch the front of the show of these screaming women senators, Elizabeth Warren, Tammy Duckworth, and it was just a bunch of nagging old battle axes yelling. And I'm like, that's not how the real women in a professional world act. I've worked with women. I've worked for women and had them as my boss in the professional world. And real normal people don't act that way. But for some reason, these Democrat U.S. senators are not normal people. They're possessed by Beelzebub or something. It really is just bizarre behavior that these women had yesterday with Pete Hegseth. And I think it's a detriment to the Democrat Party. So I say keep them up there. Keep sending Elizabeth Warren. Keep letting her talk over and over and over again. All right, the question of the day, I don't think I did it. We're going to spend a couple more minutes together so get some rapid-fire answers. Joe Biden's going to wrap up his conversation tonight as president, his farewell address to the nation. He put out a farewell a letter to the nation. Who do you think was actually running the country, running the White House for the past 4 years? Who do you think was really behind it? A lot of folks said this was the Obama White House. I think Obama was probably appalled at the lack of I'm not sure it was Obama. It might have been Obama's people, but I'm not sure it was Obama himself, because I think Obama was ready to get rid of Joe so that he could have a Michelle Obama run. I think that's definitely something that was a possibility that they wanted to have happen. Who was running the White House? Was it Jill Biden? And that's very serious. Was Jill the gatekeeper? Was Jill the one There was kind of filtering people between her and Joe and then make a decision. And then Joe would go out. Who was actually in charge the last 4 years? You've got to have some really bad. We got a lot of bad policies. And I think most of us think that Joe's probably now there. Who was running the country? Who was running the country the last couple of years? Give me your thoughts on that. Was it Jill Biden? Was it Kamala? Wasn't it? Kamala didn't. I don't think Kamala could find the directions to the White House if she needed to. Who's been running the country for the White House for the last 4 years? Give me your thoughts on that. Also, your thoughts in the chat rooms over there, wherever you're at. Comment. Are you going to watch the Biden farewell address tonight? If so, is there anything you have to hope that he says, or is this going to be a drinking game? What's on your drinking game card tonight? Every time Joe Biden stutters, every time Joe Biden slurs his words, every time Joe, I don't know why. I don't know what the drinking game is, but I don't think anything he says tonight to ride off into the sunset is going to do anything to redeem his reputation and the failure that he has been for America. And I think the history books, Steve Laffey and I agree, the history books will judge Joe Biden as someone who didn't just fail as a president. He failed America, and he failed our country. He failed you. He failed your grandkids. And as Steve Laffey said, I hope the door, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, Joe. Just get on out of there, and we hope. Who's been running, though? Who's been in charge? Joe Biden's been the figurehead, but has he really been in charge? What do you say about that? Who has been running the country for Joe Biden? That leads me to the stolen meme section of the show. I know we have a meme that's about Jill Biden running the country. This is a headline from Babylon Bee. If you don't follow Babylon Bee, Jill Biden prepares for the final week as president. You got to follow Babylon Bee. It's funny stuff. Do you agree? Is that who's been running the White House? Has Jill been in charge? Steve is right, though. She is probably the most selfish first lady ever. She did not protect her husband. She exposed her husband. She led him around by the hand while he drooled after that debate and said, Joe, you answered all the questions like it was like a kindergarten spelling bee. Jill Biden just liked the power, the prestige. She's Jill Biden. If when the book is written about her, she will be one of the most selfish. And again, I don't know about nasty, but selfish ladies that ever has done. Selfish woman, just looking to have the privilege that she got, and she stumbled into. Jill Biden has been running the White House. Do you agree with that? Another stolen meme we bring up today. A lot of you have been sending stolen memes. I appreciate it. This is not me. This is what a chauvinist would say, and I'm no chauvinist, my friends. But talking about ladies, somebody thought this would be appropriate. Have you ever been in the car and you're like, honey, where do you want to eat at? What are you going to eat tonight? Oh, I don't know. They can't decide. Well, this is somebody sent this to me. I am not responsible. Maybe women have such a hard time deciding on what to eat because the last time they decided, they doomed all of humanity. I'm not responsible. I'm not saying I agree with that, but I am saying that sometimes women, they do have a tough time deciding on where to eat. Okay, send your hate mail to producer Chad on that one. All right. What else? Biden. This is another Babylon Bee headline. Biden desperately is searching for anything else he can screw up in the next 6 days. Maybe he'll announce what he's going to screw up in the next 6 days. You've been realizing he's been signing executive orders. Like, I'm gonna start a new program, and he's signing executive orders like every day. And they're going to be removed there. And this is a funny little cartoon that producer Chad has. My presidency was by no means a failure. I was very successful at finding out what doesn't work. And he found out heck of a lot of stuff that doesn't work indeed. All right, one more thing. I don't even have my show sheet, but I wrote it down during the Steve Laffey. It popped into my head that I meant to have it on the show sheet. Is yesterday it was announced that a couple of things on the show sheet about the inauguration. That the topic that popped into my head. We have this. We have we talked about Carrie Underwood's going to sing America the Beautiful there. And also there's a story about Jeff Bezos and Zuckerberg and Elon Musk all being at the White House at the Capitol for the inauguration. And that's evidently a big deal because they have been rivals in the tech world, and the three tech moguls are going to be seated together on a platform with other guests. So they're going to be up on the platform. So Elon Musk of X and Tesla and SpaceX, and also you're going to have Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg. They're going to be up on the dais and going to be up there, which is a big turnaround. Zuckerberg is seemingly becoming a changed man. Bezos is the founder of Amazon, Washington Post, and he's decided to give $1 million to the inauguration fund. So there is that. So anyway, that's an interesting development at the inauguration. And also, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, has ordered that the flags not be at half-mast during the inauguration. They're down for 30 days of mourning after the passing of Jimmy Carter. But Johnson says, no, we're not going to have Inauguration Day with the flag. So the flags will be up. A lot of folks have asked me that question. Will the flags be up? Or they still be half staff? And Mike Johnson is in charge of the flags on Capitol Hill. He runs the place. And Mike Johnson, he's Speaker of the House, and basically they're the mayor and the city council. And flags are going to go up for the inauguration. Pam Bondi's being questioned now. Now, here's one more question before we have to wrap it up. Here's the question I have for you. It was announced that Michelle Obama, as somebody referred to her, Big Mike, is not going to be at the inauguration. Now, I heard a lot of people say, that she just really hates Donald Trump and she just can't bear to watch him become the 47th president. So she's not going to be there. I don't think it's a snub on Donald Trump. She didn't go to the Carter funeral and dutiful responsibility, first lady. You had all the privilege of being the first lady. You have all the privilege of being a first lady. So, there's some things, obligations you do, and you make some appearances like a state funeral. You do that. She did not attend the funeral. She was on, quote, extended vacation. And now she says, I'm not going to make it to the inauguration. What do you think's going on? Is this a snub to Donald Trump, or is there trouble in paradise between Barry and Michelle? It's just an honest question. I don't think if she had been at the Carter funeral and skipped the inauguration, I think you could read the tea leaves and say maybe, just maybe, she hates Donald Trump. But I think there's more to it. When you miss two major events, Michelle Obama is going to skip the inauguration. And if it was just skipping the inauguration, I think you could say this is a snub to Trump, or she was rearranging her sock drawer that day. But I don't know. I don't know. She was also missing the Carter funeral. They said it's extended vacation. Jeff says maybe she's recovering in Trinidad. Anybody who's doesn't know Trinidad, as a Colorado joke, the early days of sex changes, Trinidad, Colorado, a little enclave south of Colorado Springs, almost at the New Mexico border, was the haven, was the guy that kind of invented and mastered what Rush Limbaugh used to call the addictomy or the chopinotomy surgeries. Those are the surgeries, and that he's since passed on, and it's now other places are doing the same thing. But for years, Trinidad, Colorado was the sex change capital of the world. People came in from all across America, and as old Limbaugh used to say, the chopinotomy and the addictomy surgeries. And they did a lot of those in Trinidad, Colorado, and it's a little place. Anyway, who's been running the country the last couple of years, and why do you think Michelle Obama is skipping the inauguration? I would love to get your take on that, and we'll pick up on some of that tomorrow. All right, we're going to wrap it up here, my friends. Doug Giles is unavailable today for his normal segment. We'll pick up with Doug Giles next week. Indeed, we shall. Don't forget, though, if you would like to advertise, we're going to start announcing some advertisers real soon, working out all the details with everybody. And if you'd like to advertise with us, feel free to do so. Go to info@jimmylakey.com. We'll send you a packet, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, the Unleashed podcast, and catch out some great stuff we can do that at the patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if I missed any of your Chad, do I need to read any more? Are we up to date on quotes there? Listen, tune in tomorrow morning. Spread the word on this. When you tweet about us, use hashtag Lakey Unleashed and share the world. Tell them, hey, this is how you spend an hour or so every weekday morning, Monday through Friday. It's hashtag Lakey Unleashed. If you're out there on Rumble, please spread the word on Rumble. That's a key audience we need to crack a little bit more of. YouTube, hello, they still allow us on YouTube for now. And spread the word. I appreciate all the platforms you're listening in. And please spread the word. You're all deputized to help spread the word out there and let people know that we're doing this. Again, hashtag Lakey Unleashed. Like it when it posts in the feed. Share it, and just share it even when it's live if you can do that, and help us spread the word and grow the audience. And by the way, good morning to our Instagram crowd this morning. Sarah's been commenting a little bit on the Instagram. Instagram's kind of a transient audience. It goes up to a big audience and it goes back to see. Instagram's a new platform. Well, I've been on Instagram forever, but the live stream is a new thing for us there. So anyway, hey everybody, I got to take it off here. We're gonna wrap it up again tomorrow morning. We will be back here. We got highlights of the Pam Bondi hearing and how that confirmation hearing is going. And let's just hope that the Democrats don't act as goofy as the Democrat women did yesterday on the old confirmation hearing of Pete Hegseth. I'm Jimmy Lakey. My charity work behind me, riverspromise.org. Love to have you sponsor a child, make a donation as we help the most vulnerable and poor kids you can probably find on the planet. They're in desperate situations, and we're giving hope to children through our organization, Rivers Promise. Riverspromise.org. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Good Lord willing, the creeks don't rise, and the equipment works. I'll be back here tomorrow. And until the end, thank you, Producer Chad. I'm Jimmy Lakey. God bless you. God bless America. Jimmy Lakey, I'm out of here.